Recently, I discovered this hashtag that was trending back in April called hashtag FilmStruck4. And the idea was that you were supposed to post the 4 movies that define you as a person. And gamers, they didn't like that. We don't watch movies, they said. We watch video games, or play video games, whatever. So they came up with a complimentary hashtag, hashtag GameStruck4. And now that it's August, I wanted to do my hashtag GameStruck4. The 4 video games that most define me as a person.
So obviously there has to be a Pokemon game on my 4 defining games in my life. I've been playing Pokemon since Gen 1. Played Pokemon Blue, just really, as I think about it, just one playthrough of it that I beat the Elite Four like 40 times, because that's all there really was to do in the game. I played Gen 2, specifically Pokemon Crystal, a whole bunch. I loved how the Pokemon moved, and just Gen 2 was a lot of fun. But really, I think the one that was most defining for me was Gen 3, and specifically Pokemon Sapphire. I have played, probably over the course of my life, with the exception of another game on this list, I played Pokemon Sapphire more than any other game in my life. Ever since it came out in 2003, I believe. At least that's when I got it. I got it as a birthday gift. My birthday happened to fall on my school's annual fish fry weekend, so I had to go to the fish fry. But my dad always would cook the fish because he likes fish and likes volunteering. He's a good person, and they got me both Ruby and Sapphire, actually, but I always picked Sapphire specifically because I liked the way that the Team Magma outfits looked, and you don't face Team Magma in Ruby. So I picked Sapphire, also because I was more into blue, and I don't really wear a lot of red. I don't think red wears well on me, but I just like blue better as a color. So yeah, it was because of that, and because I wanted to actually look at the Team Magma outfits. What are you going to do? But specifically, one thing I really like about Pokemon is, and just all video games in general, is I like games where there's a lot of stuff to collect, a lot of things to obsess over, because that's what really draws me in, is I want to get everything. And in Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all was the original catchphrase, and that was the part I really liked. I remember on one of the very first routes, just sitting there obsessively, like going through the grass, like, okay, I know there's 2 rare Pokemon here. I know there's Ralts, and I know that there's Surskit. And Surskit especially is a Pokemon that you can go through that entire game and not even know that it exists. It's that rare. Ralts you see as part of the story, but those were 2 Pokemon that I just thought they were cool, especially when they evolved into Gardevoir and Masquerain. I thought those were 2 cool Pokemon. And just a lot of the Pokemon in that generation. I loved Breloom, I loved Blaziken, the Latios and Latias, I like them. And then the sound, the music. Oh, it was just such a step forward. It was one of the first Game Boy Advance games, if I recall. But just to see how much the Game Boy Advance could do, and then how much a Pokemon game could do and could be, beyond what Gen 2 did. And obviously it wasn't, as big of a world, but it told, the story that it told was just, just Pokemon in general is something that's very dear to me. It's something that I can, even to this day, I just finished a playthrough actually of Pokemon X again, and I love Pokemon games so much. And Pokemon Sapphire has just, I played it in grade school, I played it in high school, I played it in college. I love that game. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog actually appears not only on my GameStruck 4, but on my hashtag FilmStruck 4, because the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA is one of my favorite movies of all time. I had that VHS, and I played it so much that I broke the VHS and it would not play anymore. I love that movie. And I played some Sonic games for my channel. But thinking about, Sonic 2 was my very first video game ever. And I loved that game. I loved Sonic 3. A lot of the 2D ones. Sonic Advance was super fun. Those were games that really, they took me not just how do I word this? It seems that kids, especially when they're preteen, teenager age, have kind of that one thing that if you had to boil down their whole personality, it's that one thing. And for me, it was Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog fan forums, Sonic the Hedgehog, not just the games, but it was what inspired me to be interested in game design, which obviously I haven't pursued that professionally, but it was something, I taught game design classes. I learned it kind of from scratch, just because I'd always wanted to create my own Sonic the Hedgehog game. But the Sonic game that really stood out to me most, and in fact I'm actually doing a replay of it on my own right now, is Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube. This was a game I remember seeing. We went with a family, some family friends, to a Weird Al concert, and we stopped at their house before we went to the concert, and their son, who was my age, or maybe younger, I don't know, it's hard to remember back then, but he was playing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and he had the guide, and I used to love the Primo player's guides, even if it was games that I didn't have, I just loved reading through them. But I just thought it was the coolest looking game ever, and I just really wanted it, and eventually I did get it. And I've never beaten it 100%, but I'm about to. I'm almost there. But I was even into Sonic Adventure. Now that I think about it, I was into Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, or Sonic Adventure 2 specifically, even before I knew the game existed. Because on one of our very first PCs that we had for our family, I installed a Shadow Windows theme to it, back when that was kind of how Windows themes worked, where it added the different sound effects and startup music and whatever. I thought Shadow was really cool, and I really liked, even though I wasn't super big into the color, red sort of colors, I thought his aesthetic was really cool, and he would actually, Shadow would kind of inspire a lot of the character designs that I did for myself, like OCs and whatever, because, dark, edgy, preteen. But I don't know, I love Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Not as much the music for this one, but, and the gameplay was, people tend to complain about, 3D Sonic gameplay, but I love it. This game is so fun, and that I still, want to go back and play it. And for a long time, whenever I thought, what is my favorite game? I never really had a real answer, but Sonic Adventure 2 Battle was the closest thing I had. So by default, it was my favorite game of all time for a long time. And not just the Sonic gameplay, but also the Chows. I love them. They are precious to me. I want to protect them. I want to treasure them. I want to raise them and nurture them and love them. Everything about this game is so fun, and I got the version for Steam, but I still don't have a computer strong enough to run it. I really need to, buckle down and actually get a gaming computer at some point. But one thing at a time. Spyro the Dragon holds a special place in my heart because it was one of the first PlayStation games that I had. And I remember we also got it for, like, I loved it so much that my folks actually got it for one of my cousins for his birthday. Because I don't know if that was just because they knew I liked it so much, so they maybe just guessed that he would. But, you know, I just, the whole series I really love, but I think I got to give it to the first one because, in particular, I just think of after you've cleared out a world, you've collected all the gems, you've beaten all the enemies, and it's just this kind of like peaceful, empty world with this ambient music. It's so beautiful. It's so simple. The story is so simple, especially. It's literally just like, I'm the good guy, I'm the bad guy, come and get me. Like, it's so good. So good. I'm not excited for the remakes because I think we should just be able to enjoy things as they are, and I get that we have to make, you know, things available to newer generations, but I don't know. One thing I really don't like about the idea of the remakes is the Gnorcs in the original game. Like, everything in the original games, the original PlayStation games, is kind of like this mess of polygons, so you can't really, like, sometimes you can't really tell what it's supposed to be, and that leaves your mind has to fill in the blanks, and you have to use your imagination. So the Gnorcs, who I thought were kind of like, I thought they were kind of cool looking in the original, but now in the remakes they just look gross. So I think that's also just part of like a don't ruin my nostalgia, you know, get off my lawn sort of thing. But yeah, I love Spyro so much. And in considering, like, you know, what about the second game? What about the third game? Because I recall the third game specifically, I loved playing that one so much. And the second game I played so much I broke the disc. So, although I think that was probably because I like stepped on it. Probably. It doesn't matter. I love the Spyro games, and it's another collectathon where there's so much, even if it's just the gems or gems and orbs and eggs and whatever, there's just a lot to collect and a lot to do. So that's I like it, and it was also my very first Let's Play. It was the game that got me into doing Let's Plays, even though I haven't been doing them super frequently lately, but it's fine, don't worry about it. It was so kind of defining in two like times in my life. As a kid, just kind of in a dark room with a CRT TV, destroying my eyesight playing this game, and then also as an adult, in a dark room with an LED monitor, destroying my eyes. I can't see is the point I'm getting at, but I love video games, and I love the world that Spyro opened me up to twice. And if that's not defining as a person, then I don't know what is. I had some trouble thinking about what the fourth game was going to be, because I could have very easily put another Sonic or Pokemon or Spyro game on this list, honestly. But, you know, there are different ways to kind of like describe how a game can define you. You know, obviously I could have looked at some of the games that I've played for 200 plus hours. For example, Rune Factory 4. That game was one that was just like, you know, from 0 to 10, it got me to like 9.5. There was just like so much, just a little bit more that I wanted from it that could have gotten me to like to the perfect video game. I played that one just so much. I remember one day just sitting on the couch in my room, playing it during the day. I threw a blanket over my head, and then just kept playing it forever. And then at some point I got like hungry, so I pulled the blanket over my head and it was pitch black. Like, I played so long that the sun had set. You know, when a game is good and you can obsess over it, then it's really good. Another series that I thought about including was Crash Bandicoot, because obviously that's right there, the same sort of timeline as Spyro. And in fact, I've probably played more Crash Bandicoot games than Spyro games. I remember the first time ever playing Crash Bandicoot 1 was I was real young. I was still, needed a babysitter during the day, and the person who was babysitting me was my dad's secretary, and or the secretary for their office, and she was like an archaeologist. She was super cool, but was also I don't know. But she had a huge TV. At least it was huge to me because I wasn't 5 feet tall yet and would not be 5 feet tall until I was actually 15. Playing it was either Stormy Ascent or Slippery Climb. I don't remember which is the one that's actually in the game. Just playing that level and then dying at every single jump, and then eventually getting the game for myself and then dying at every other jump. I loved Crash Bandicoot 3. I remember another time where I was playing it in my room and I got my very first gold relic on the motorcycle, the very first motorcycle level. And I remember running down to my mom, who was probably nursing a headache in her bed because she had 3 children and we liked to make noise. So, and I just was super excited, oh my gosh, I got a gold relic. I got a really good score. I got a really good time. And her just not even knowing how to be interested in it, in the nonsense that I was spouting out of my mouth. And then Crash Team Racing. I think that Crash Team Racing was the premier racing game of that generation. Everybody got super into Mario Kart 64, but Mario Kart 64 is a garbage video game, especially compared to Crash Team Racing, because Crash Team Racing had a story. Crash Team Racing had the collectathon sort of aspect in the story mode. Unlockable characters as well. It had a franchise of more than 8 people. Gosh, such a good game. And that just also reminded me of not Mario Kart, because whatever, it's stupid, but other Mario games such as Paper Mario. Love Paper Mario, love Thousand Year Door, and then Mario Party. I played Mario Party 2 so much. I have not played Mario Party 2 actually since I was a kid, since I played it on the N64. And that was partially just, I remembered the game so much, so I wanted to do other things like Mario Party 6 or Mario Party 3, which I recorded as a Let's Play. But Mario Party 2, I played that game so much, and I really want to play it again, actually. It's going to be like Ocarina of Time, where I played it once as a kid and then didn't play it again and actively avoided all Ocarina of Time content for 11 years. And then, because that way, when I played Ocarina of Time again, it was so fresh that it felt like I got to play a new game again. Those are good games. And then another game that I was thinking about including would be Taiko no Tatsujin, which is the taiko drumming arcade game that I got to play in Japan. And I would include that solely because I'm a weeb, an anime nerd, otaku doofus who loves J-pop and rhythm games. So yeah, that would have been another option. But what I settled on, and particularly with this game being, as I would learn, my favorite game of all time, is Bravely Default. I'd not played, I've actually still, to this day, have never played any Final Fantasy games, except for Crystal Chronicles, which doesn't count. It's not a real Final Fantasy game. But Bravely Default is on the same wiki as the Final Fantasy game, so maybe it's similar. And it was a game that it took me several times to get through one playthrough. I would play it for, a good chunk of time, 40, 50 hours, and then be like, I gotta take a break, I gotta stop. I gotta do something else. And then I would come back to it and get a little bit further, play another 50 hours. I think I have 200 plus hours getting every single thing. I missed one sub-boss in Chapter 6. That as soon as I went to Chapter 7, I realized, oh, dope. Well, never get that back. But it was the final boss in that game that, when the music started swelling, and there's a part, this is obviously, there's a bunch of spoilers in here, and the fact that I never listened to the final boss music until I got to the final boss made it all that more special to me, because there's a part in the final boss music where it plays your character's themes, and I don't remember if it's this way when you're actually fighting the boss, but it felt like it didn't play that part until I had gotten to one of the last phases of the boss fight. And when it started playing my character's themes, it just occurred to me in the story, I'm we've been fighting all these just normal people and random monsters or whatever, getting slowly stronger and stronger, and even in story they rationalize it and say oh, that blue world you're in is a contained space so that you don't accidentally rend the earth or whatever. And then realizing I'm facing a god. I'm able to stand toe to toe with a god and defeat him, and it was such a powerful moment. Oh my gosh. It was beautiful. I never before had a video game made me feel the way that Bravely Default's final boss battle did. And just the whole game in general. I loved how they could... I always had this idea from other JRPGs I'd played, like Evolution Worlds, that they were very much stat-based. Even Pokemon. If your stats are higher than the others, then that's pretty much guaranteed victory. But Bravely Default had so much strategy to it. I remember coming up with all these different strategies to fight the elemental dragons. Tried to type up this whole long article, but then got bored about the strategy I used, which was I called it Dash, Defender, Attacker, Supporter, Healer. You have 4 characters, 4 roles, and you have to have one of each. And obviously there's overlap and stuff. But then just all the different classes. I remember fighting the vampire hidden boss, and that was the one time in any video game where I actually paid for microtransactions, because I had been fighting that boss for a half an hour, and I probably could have restarted it and done it right and good without needing to spend money, but I just wanted to beat it. So it was, in that way it sort of tested my patience and won. But, and then just how much I, thought about it afterwards. I have a spreadsheet of what my favorite classes are and which ones I think are the most valuable and which ones work well with others. It's such a good game. I'm making my way through Bravely Second right now. I'm kind of in like the first hiatus sort of period where I played it for 50 hours and like I gotta move on to other games. And Bravely Second does a lot of things right. I think a lot of the stuff that they improved upon from Bravely Default, they do it really well. A lot of the new stuff that they added in doesn't really hit as much. But especially in Bravely Second, how it seems like elemental weaknesses are a lot more important. It feels like that's because I'm a Pokemon player, so that part of strategy comes very easily to me. So it's not as fun, especially when you get the wizard class so early. Yeah, it feels like I don't know. That's not as good. But there's so much more like lore and story to obsess over that Bravely Second is a good contender, but so far Bravely Default just edges it out, and it's just an amazing game. And I don't know, for any of the games that I've mentioned today, I really think that you should pick them up and play them yourselves. But Bravely Default especially, like if there was one JRPG that you were going to play, it should be Bravely Default. I mean, you should play a lot, actually, because then you can start to, I guess, appreciate elements from various RPG games. And, yeah, but it's my favorite game. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know when I'll be ready to play it again, probably in 11 years. When I can have a whole fresh experience again, but it's so good. So yeah, GameStruck4, hashtag GameStruck4, Pokemon Sapphire, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Spyro the Dragon, Bravely Default. I have been breadfiesta. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope your day is going exactly the way that you want it to.